that if I'm in a relationship with another person, I have a small tribe, I am safer than if I'm on my own. Right? Something that people forget is that relationships were the world's first insurance policy. Right? If I have relationships, then I have protection.
Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10/10, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I'm Matt Bonelli, joined by my incredible co-host, Garrett Fry. And we have an incredible guest for you guys today. Some of you might know who this person is. We have Mr. Thank You, aka John Israel, with us, which I would say John is the gratitude catalyst. He was a top salesman, rising to the top of his rankings there through using gratitude and surprise and delight with his customers, then shifted into this life-transforming year-long project, which he wrote a book about. And now he's focusing on rehumanizing businesses by bringing back these authentic emotional connections to help people build and pursue their passions while creating incredible impact. John, welcome to the show, man. So great to see you again.
I'm happy to be here, and I love that it's I've become Mr. Thank You, also known as John Israel. I think someone made a joke. They're like, you've made it when your Instagram handle becomes more your real name than your real name. So
that is the truth. It is the truth. It's great. Well, John, for the people who maybe don't know who you are, haven't read your book, the Mr. Thank You Project. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your backstory, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is John Israel, and my nickname, Mr. Thank You, came about because professionally I do three things. I'm a keynote speaker, a business coach, and then I run a professional gifting agency. And all of those are revolved around the same problem, which is I think it is crazy that we live in a world with so much abundance and so many tools and technology to connect us, yet we're more unhappy and disconnected than we've ever been. And when you think about it, losing a key relationship is one of the most expensive and painful experiences for an individual to go to, personally or professionally. And so all of our businesses, all of our services are really designed to help professionals build a sustainable sales and business career that supports their ideal life, very specifically focusing on building positive, profitable relationships. So that's kind of like what everything is built around.
John, you mentioned losing a key relationship right up front. And I want to just lean into that just for a second as we're getting started here. I try to tell people all the time, like, as you're building a relationship style business, and it doesn't matter if it's real estate or whatever you're building, when you're building it around relationships, those relationships are the most valuable thing you have in your business because they're exponential as they grow and they get stronger and better. I mean, you have taken like your time now investing in figuring out like, well, how important is this key relationship that we're trying to hold on to? Like, what is the value of that key relationship? What would you say around that? Because it resonates with me. I don't feel enough people out there understand that they're always looking for the new client rather than fostering this incredible person that's sitting right in front of them right now. What would you say around that as you're kind of seeing this evolve?
Yeah, well, I think that something we have to consider as a reality is that you are one relationship away from transforming your life and or your business. I truly believe that. You are one relationship away from transforming your life and or your business. And that relationship might not be as obvious as you would think, right? And so when I think of that for my life, there's so many moments where I can imagine a single relationship that changed everything, right? It was early on when I was a punk kid in high school and I tried out for the cross country team. Well, you don't really try out. You just kind of show up for the cross country team.
I did that one. Did you really just all you have to do is show up? They're like, oh, you want to run? Come with us.
Pretty much. You'll be on JV, but you'll run. And I thought I had an easy slate, but then I got kicked off the team because I was getting bad grades in school. And I'll never forget because my coach walks up to me and he slams 3 pink slips of paper in my chest and says, "What is this?" And there were deficiency notices letting my coach know that I was failing 3 out of 6 classes when I was 15 years old. And he confronted me about it, and I gave every excuse in the book as a teenager would. And he just looks at me and says, unacceptable. We have standards for every runner on our team, and this is below the standard. You are better than this, but you need to prove it to yourself. And at 15, I could have responded any number of ways. I could have been upset and just said, hey, that's not fair, or life isn't fair, or whatever. But there's something about his criticism that wasn't demeaning and talking down. It was talking up and challenging me to be better. And I think that's what a good leader does. We don't want every relationship to be soft and comfortable, right? Especially if our goal is growth. And so for me, that coaching relationship literally changed everything. I went back to every teacher and I apologized for screwing around in class. They, in turn, didn't berate me like I thought they would. They actually helped me. And I brought every class grade up. I went from a 1.7 to a 3.5 by the end of that semester.
Wow.
I wound up getting an academic scholarship to the college I went to because of the standard that coach held me and every runner to on that team. It turns out I didn't know this, but we were a legendary running team. Like our team in San Diego made it to the state championship every year for like 8 years in a row because of who he was. So that's an example. You can think of it from the business perspective, right? So I run now have a keynote. I'm a keynote speaker. I wrote a book and all these things. Now that came from, I can literally trace all of this back to a podcast that I did in 2020 during COVID. And I'll be honest, guys, it was one of the most awkward podcasts I've ever done. I won't say who it was, but and I think that the host felt the same way because he didn't even publicize it to the platform, but he put it on his YouTube channel. Well, because of that, there was a woman, and I'll give her a shout out. Her name is Katie Shive. She's become a dear friend. She heard the podcast and actually liked it. So she reached out and said, hey, it's COVID. We're trying to do some realtor value add events for our business partners. She works for a mortgage company. Could you come and guest speak? So I did. Well, I get on that show and I start to share about, the Mr. Thank You Project and this journey of this year-long gratitude experiment. And it turns out there's a woman named Shayla Gifford who is on there. If you guys don't know who Shayla is, she's one of the top producing, most influential mortgage people in the country. So she loved the message, sends a BombBomb video to her entire company saying, hey, I learned these things from this guy. Here's what I'm going to share with you guys. Then they brought me in to speak for the entire company that year. And then from there, she did an event with all of her high producing real estate partners. That crushed, that blew up and went all over the place. And I've literally spoken probably 200 times as a result of that podcast that wasn't even very good. And so I think for me, the underlying current in my life is you never know who somebody will be. You also never know who's watching or who's looking. But I just place bets on people. I'm not a gambler, but I do bet on people because you never know what relationship's going to pay off. So if you treat everybody well and also are intentional about the relationships that have the highest potential, you can really accelerate your growth in whatever you're doing.
I love that. I love that story. Particularly your coach saying you need to prove it to yourself, which is an incredible way to position something like that, because it's not like you don't need to prove it to me. Because it's him saying, I believe in you, which is one of the most powerful things that you can hear somebody say without him actually saying it, by actually putting it back on you, which is really, really great. Garrett, yeah.
Well, ever since you said that, I've been wanting to go back to it. I'm like, if we can go back to it, I want to. So Matt, thanks for going back to that moment, because all of us are coaches. We all help people with their businesses. We all help people grow. And you have those moments where you are that hard ass person that has to say, this is absolutely unacceptable, how you are showing up right now. And it's one of those moments that you can find out real quick if you have a coachable person standing in front of you. And you can have that person that's like, oh, screw off, and they go run off to the hills, and you're like, all right, like I can't help that person. I can't do anything for that person. But the minute they turn and go to all their teachers and apologize and say, what can I do better? Like, how can I show up better? Like, that's one of those brilliant moments that you're like, this is somebody we can help. This is somebody that wants to change. Is somebody that wants to grow. And I think it's one of those gifts that you got to see early on in your own experience that probably is what helps you be who you are today, by being able to watch somebody go through that transformation, because it's really powerful when you watch somebody who wants to be helped and wants to be coached. So good for you, man. Good for the coach. That's incredible that he took that stance that hardcore, because there's a lot of teachers out there that just go like, they're a screw up. They don't take them this serious, and they just let them go off into the distance. And well done, whoever that teacher is. Well done.
Yeah, well, so he's a legendary coach. He has since passed away. I think when he was my coach, he was like 70, so he was really well known. Well, so here's another moment I'll share with you about him that was, and I guess we're going to go kind of in a leadership direction about this, because a few months later, right? I did. So here, the kind of the cool part of that story was that I got back on the team before the end of the season. He let me race, and then actually I just took it more seriously, and I wound up making a varsity time. So they do it by time, not by like order. I made a varsity time before the end of the season, so I was getting a letter for my jacket, right? So they had the Letterman jacket. Do you guys have those when you were in high school?
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, so it was a big deal for our team, and so I remember being in class, and my coach, we were actually, it was his classroom was his office, and so we were in there after school, and it was between seasons, right? Track and cross country. So everyone's like all excited. They're ordering their Letterman jackets, all the new freshmen all the new people who are getting their Letterman jackets. So he comes to me and he says, "Hey, John, we're ordering everyone's Letterman jacket. What size are you?" Now, a fact about me is that I grew up as a kid who's, wouldn't use the word impoverished, but we were a pretty poor family. So we just did not have money for things. I mean, when I was a kid, I have a weird story about we didn't have money for shoes. My mom spray painted a pair of my sister's shoes black so that I could wear them to school. People knew that they were girls' shoes, but like that was just kind of how I grew up. Everything was a hand-me-down. Nothing was new. And so when it came time for my coach to ask me about a Letterman jacket, I just deflected and I said, "Oh, no, don't worry about it, coach. I don't need one." And he says, "No, like I'm ordering everybody a Letterman jacket. Like, what size are you?" And so I walked up to him and I just said, "Hey, coach, I'm really sorry, but my family can't afford this, and I don't want to put them in that position where they feel awkward to buy this when they just don't have the money for it." And he looks at me and says, "John, that wasn't my question. My question was, what size are you?" He went on to buy my Letterman jacket for me. And I eventually paid him back like 10 years later when I became like successful in business. And I came back and I gave him the check. I don't know if he ever deposited or not. I didn't check, but that stuck with me because investing in relationships is inherently risky. We can pour into people with our time, our energy. We can buy them a really nice, expensive gift. We could put money down towards something to support somebody. We don't know if that's ever going to pay off. And I think that everybody in here who's listening to this call has been burned in a relationship. And so inherently, when it comes for an opportunity to play generously, many of us, if we're honest, will pull back unless we know it's going to pay off. But that's just not always how relationships work, especially early on. So that for me showed me that he valued vision more than certainty. He valued what he saw me capable of more than what he knew for sure was going to happen. I mean, I was a 15-year-old kid. I wasn't going to pay him back. Like I didn't have the money. Of course, couldn't count on my parents. But that bet, I mean, you talk about a kid who was loyal to the core, who showed up to every single practice, who gave his best, who recruited people to the team, who actually wound up going to the university he went to, Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. And like, I got to continue his legacy on. He since passed away. His name was Coach Downey. There is now a race in San Diego for all the high schools called the Coach Downey Classic, because this is just who he was for people. And I think that inherently we would all love to say that we want that impact in life, but here's the reality. A life of impact is paved with decisions to invest in people that didn't work out. It's paved with heartbreak and loss, because for every kid that he had a conversation with me like that lived up to it, there's probably 5 kids who didn't live up to it, who ran off. And you got to accept that is a part of life, and it's a part of business. And it's something that I think is important for us to realize is that not every relationship is going to work out. And there's two ways to look at that, which is to, number one, not take it so personally if a client bails on you or starts using another agent or something like that, but also to accept and realize that you don't need every relationship to work out for you to be as successful as you want. One of the things I try to tell clients, especially if they're struggling with a particular deal that didn't work out, or the client flaked on them, or something really painful happened, is I say, here's something to remember. No one client will make or break your career, and every client matters. Don't be a jerk. Don't be dismissive if something doesn't work out, but also don't be so worried about, if this deal doesn't work out, then my year is screwed. You could lose a $3 million listing and still have a good year. That could happen. But unless you lose a $3 million listing and it throws you off whack for 2-3 weeks, and then you don't prospect, and then that can affect your year if you let it. So it's kind of a conflict from what I just opened with, right? Which is, you're one relationship away from transforming your life. And the other side is, you're one relationship won't make or break your career. I think they're both true, because you never know who a relationship is, and also don't put so much weight on it that your life is over if it doesn't work out.
But John, there's a resilience you have to have, I think, as a strong leader and as a strong coach, is that, in that world, you got to know that you're going to pour your heart into somebody over here, and you got to wait for them to go. You kind of got to see those signs in them where they're going, I'm willing to change. I'm willing to be different. Just like you when the coach came to you, and he's going to pour his heart into 5 people on that team that may be in that same position. And you're looking for that one that goes, I'm willing to be different. I'm willing to stand up. And you're going to have your heart broken by a couple others that go like, I'm off the team. I'll never come back. I'll never run again. And, there's that resilience you have to be able to give to people. And that's, I think, what makes really good leaders, really good coaches, whether it's sports or business or whatever, is that ability of being able to say, I can't help everybody. I can only help the people that are moving towards me. I say that all the time. You're looking for the people that turn and move towards you. You're going to communicate. And every once in a while, somebody's going to come and literally, you can watch them do it. Their energy will face you. And when that energy is facing you and coming towards you, that's your moment. You're like, here's somebody that I need to engage with more. And there's other ones that their energy is kind of coming towards us, but not really. And it's like, you can't force it. You can still engage with them. But the minute that energy turns and faces you, okay, now we're playing. Now we can have, this is a relationship that's going to grow. And you just got to kind of always be looking for those and be willing that not all of them are going to do it, and be okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting about that is, yeah, you're totally right. Here's a question. How many relationships do you need to be successful, or to be as successful as you want? Right. So this is a really interesting concept. Have you guys heard of Dunbar's number?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow.
We've done trainings and podcasts on that one for sure.
I talk about it all the time.
All right, so I'm gonna share it from a slightly different perspective. Maybe this will be valuable. So for anyone who doesn't know the Dunbar's number, it is the number is 150, which is said to be the maximum number of meaningful relationships that anyone can manage. Right now, that's that there's different variations there. Right, there's like the top 5, which are the closest relationships to you, the ones that you would go to in like the deepest, darkest times. We call that the front row, people who would show up in the front row of your funeral. Right. Then there's the top 15, which are those that you're connected with, maybe in your community, maybe extended family. Right. And then there's the top 50, which is those that you have a connection with. It's strong, but it's not nearly as close as one of those top 15 or top 5. And then there's a top 150, and this is really kind of can extend to church community, or if you're in in some type of a mastermind or different things like that, where there's a group of, and it's not like in one group, it's like you have them in pockets all over the place. And then above that, I think is 500, and then 2,500, and then beyond 2,500 is the rest of humanity. Now, here's the interesting thing that's conflicting about that, right? Sometimes I think about that and I'm like, well, in some ways I don't like that, because my goals require me to know more than 150 people. So I feel frustrated with that. But then on the other side, it's like, wow, 150 actually does feel manageable. It does feel like I could actually build and grow those relationships. But here's the interesting thing that I want to bring a different light on, which is when there's this concept of what is called a parasocial relationship, right? A parasocial relationship. And this is a relationship that is one-sided, and it's really grown and built mostly from social media, right? It did exist back in the day, right? The Beatles were well known by millions of fans, and the Beatles didn't know millions of fans, right? And so there's this interesting thing that we have what are called parasocial relationships where, Garrett, I might follow you on social media and we've never met. And I know what you ate for breakfast. I know your dog's name. I know where all these things that you share. And we might bump in sometime at an event. And I'm like, oh, Garrett, man, that thing you shared on Easter was so crazy and blah, blah. And you're like, I didn't even know who you are. It almost creates this weird disconnect of like, wow, we're not really connected, but you think we are. And vice versa exists, right? As we can build. There's this focus in business, which is to build this big social media audience and be so well known and all of these things. But then what actually happens with that? And so here is the interesting concept that when I open with, which is that how do we have so much abundance and so many tools and technology to connect us, yet we're more unhappy and disconnected than we've ever been. And I think this is the problem, which is the problem with modern day human connection is not technology, but rather the illusion of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We think we're more connected than we actually are. And so this is where it gets very confusing and conflicting in business because there's such this drive to be known and to be loved and to have so many followers, and that hopefully maybe they'll filter down and you're going to get business. Now, as someone who is a level of influencer in the world, I don't have that huge of a following. I probably got about 4,500 people that follow me on social media. I do get a lot of business from social media, but we just leverage it differently. It's not about trying to be loved by everybody. It's by being super clear about who our customer is and to be clear about our communication of service and to make periodic offers so that we can take those online relationships, start a conversation, move them in person. And that's where we start to build relationships and we start pulling them down into this 150. And that's how we're going to grow our business. And I think that's really where a lot of people get lost and stuck in real estate or business, is that they're so focused on getting these big followings. They think that's the solution. No, the solution is you need to get better at building the relationships you already have.
Yeah.
Here's my final thought. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. But I believe that most people, business people, wake up with a set of binoculars, right? And they're out looking like, where's the next deal? Where's the next customer? And the reality is we need to grab a magnifying glass and look right in front of us and say, who is already here that I can serve at a deeper level?
And everybody has those people right there that they can serve. And as your map that you just explained is so perfect, because a lot of people think, and Garrett, this goes back to what you said earlier, is how do I find the next client? How do I find the new person? How do I find that one relationship that's going to change my life? Because I already have all these other relationships. But the truth is, do you actually have those relationships? Have you poured into them? And it even starts with, I think, the core values, right? Because you go to your coach. Dan Martell even shared with us the security guard when he was in juvie who gave him the motivation to go do what he does today. And he even said when he was here in Charleston, he's like, I don't think he remembered me, because that was just something he did for every young kid that was there, because he believed in everybody, that everyone had the opportunity to transform. And it sounds exactly like your coach. He believed in you and he believed in everybody else too. And so he poured out in that way to create that opportunity. And so many people miss that in their business. And so I want to hear from you, John, about like, okay, so because the top of the funnel is going to grow if you grow the people that are around you now, because they're going to help amplify your message, your spirit, your business. We talk about referrals. The best way to build referrals isn't by finding new people. It's about really loving on the people that you have. So how do you create structure around that? Because I think there is this mental dichotomy that we face when we're like, hey, I want to be authentic. I want to be genuine. I want to really love on my people. But if I build a system for it, it feels inauthentic. It feels like now I'm just trying to make money off of my people, when really I just want to scale up what I'm doing. So how do you create that from a mental and physical perspective, John?
Yeah, well, so I think there's number one, you have to accept that there are realities that make relationships work. And the realities are that we all have needs. So if you can serve my needs, we have an automatic relationship, right? And it doesn't matter how well we know each other or not. So as a quick just a framework that I like to teach people, which is I call this the hierarchy of human connection. And these are 4 pieces. You can think of it like an upside down funnel, like an upside down pyramid of like the needs that we have. Have you heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Oh yeah.
You're speaking
So
our language,
similar,
John. We're on the same page. Dunbar's number, Maslow hierarchy. You keep going, dude. We're doing great.
love it. All right. So this is kind of my iteration of that in the context of relationships, of what we need to feel good and to keep a relationship in existence. And they go in this order: safe, seen, significant, supported. Safe, seen, significant, supported. Safe, right? A baseline. So you have to understand, why did relationships begin in the first place, right? If we go way, 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 way back into cavemen and cavewoman days, there was an awareness and a realization that if I'm in a relationship with another person, I have a small tribe, I am safer than if I'm on my own, right? Something that people forget is that relationships were the world's first insurance policy, right? If I have relationships, then I have protection. So there's something we have to understand, is that relationships have a basis of safety. Now that looks a few different ways. Number one, will you protect me if a bear comes into the camp? I would hope you guys would. Maybe you'd all run away. Maybe I'd run away. But the point is that we seek protection. Part of that in modern day life is, do I have psychological safety around you? Do I feel comfortable in my own skin when I'm with you? Right. So, and we can think about with my coach. Now, he challenged me. There's actually an interesting conflict here. He challenged me. He could almost say he didn't create a safe environment, but he actually did, because sometimes creating safety in a relationship is protecting people from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone on here, if you're a real estate professional, you know that sometimes you have to do that for a client, don't you? When they're having a conversation about maybe pulling the offer because purely they're being scared, that's okay to be scared. This is part why you're being paid, is because you bring certainty to when people are afraid. That is creating a level of safety for the client, because whoever comes with certainty brings safety, right? That's at least the feeling the client has. Seen, right? The second layer is, does this person really know me? Do they see me at a deeper level than others do? And this is where, my Mr. Thank You project really actually was this deep understanding of human beings. So just to frame for anyone who doesn't know it. So for an entire year, I made a commitment to handwrite 5 thank you cards every single day for 365 days in a row. And that turned into a book, and then I gave a TED talk on it. And now it kind of blew up into this whole thing. But the concept that I had to learn was, for me to write somebody an authentic thank you card, I really needed to know them. So when I would meet somebody, I would go through this little process, right? So we talked about bringing systems to relationships. So I didn't know this at the time, but I was building this like connection process. So I have 3 things I go through. I call these the story, significance, and struggle. Story. Hey, what's your story? How did you get into what you're doing today? When people start to tell you their story, they're inadvertently starting to tell you about their decision-making process. They're telling you about their values of what they care about, right? If somebody's moving or buying a house and you say, hey, so how long have you lived here? Are you originally from here? What brought you to the area? And they're telling you about all the decisions that they've made, not all of them, but some of them, the important ones to get them where they are today. That's valuable to know if you want to understand how to support somebody. So story, significance, right? What are you excited about? What are you most looking forward to? What are some of your goals? What are some of your dreams, right? When people tell you about those things, then they're telling you what they're excited about. They're telling you about their deep motivations. And then struggle is, hey, tell me what you're struggling with. Or if I'm working with a client, hey, what's the biggest thing you're afraid that might happen in this transaction? When people disclose with you their fears, they're actually telling you, please help me solve this problem, because if you do, then I'll trust you. And so that's what I'm looking for to understand somebody, because if I know their story, I know what makes them excited, I know what they're afraid of, I actually have a good 360-degree view of this person. And so for me, I would just write those things down in a thank you card. And I would just say, hey, I just want to say thank you so much for our conversation the other day. I really loved hearing about blank, blank, and blank. And I totally understand that you are worried about this. And you have to understand that that is something that I have studied relentlessly about. And I look forward to supporting you through this transaction. Something like that. And it's like, wow, they really see me. They really understand. They really pay attention. Right. And I hate to say this, right? But sometimes people get addicted to their work because it's an environment where they feel seen and they don't feel seen at home.
Oh, interesting.
Good point.
And I bet, and if we kind of keep going up the layers, right? So we'll hit the others real quickly, but significant, right? Significant is being recognized, being appreciated, being valued, receiving a gift, receiving an accolade, getting a trophy, just simply being around somebody that makes you feel good about yourself, right? Because sometimes the opposite of this is also true. There's people around us that when we're around them, we simply feel littler every single time. Is that somebody that we want to send referrals to? Not typically. And I wouldn't presume anyone listening here would do that to a client, but just thinking of the relationships that you get referrals from, do you make them feel amazing? And lastly is supported, right? Are you continuing to offer them value that's going to help their lives, right? I mean, this is a case in point why we pay anyone for a service, right? But here's the other thing. Inside of social media, I think of this from the place of, am I teaching things that are of educational value that are going to help my current clients and future prospects? Because that's what they're looking for. So safe, seen, significant, and supported. So here's the other trick part of this, which is I bet if you look at any one of your relationships that fell apart or ended in some way, shape, or form, one of those four things was no longer in existence.
Mm-hmm.
So John, I want to go back to, and I hope I wrote this down, story, significance, and struggle, right? Those are the pieces that you're listening for when you are having a conversation with somebody that would help you write a handwritten note, right? I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast here. We have a lot of people that are building referral relationship businesses and relationships, and a lot of them struggle with, how do I make that first connection with somebody? How do I make it authentic? And there's two sides of this. When there's a system like this, when you have this system that's like, oh, there's a process now that I'm going to do when I'm talking to somebody and that first time and kind of listening and growing, some people will go, oh, thank goodness, there's a system so I can be better at this. And there's another group that will go, there's a system which now it feels inauthentic. And I don't feel like I'm not really being me. And I don't know, it feels contrived. And now I'm forcing a relationship that maybe wouldn't have had. And it's like, whoa, stop over there. If your whole thing is about taking care of people, making them feel great, building better relationships, I'm hoping everybody's listening to this and going like, oh my gosh, there's a tool and a system and a way to make those grow faster, more effectively, because my heart's in the right place. I love that you shared these three little pieces, and I'm hoping everybody listening out there wrote them down. Story, significance, and struggle when listening to people, because what a great little way to look at how do I engage with somebody to learn about them that's going to help that relationship grow faster. But you got to be authentic about it. Like, if you're looking at it as, how can I do this to make the next sale out there? Don't bother using the system, please.
Well, so yeah, and I totally get that, right? Because there's this level of like, it's not authentic or whatever. I think we also just have to accept that there's a reality sometimes. Have you ever noticed that, hey, some relationships work out really, really great, and some relationships don't really work out all that great? Sometimes clients are really trusting of me. Sometimes they're not really trusting of me. And asking, well, what do I want more of? Are there any things that happen consistently in those relationships? How might I duplicate that so that I can get more good relationships? Like, it sounds so basic and simple, but that's where this concept of the hierarchy of human connection came from, right? Is understanding that for me to have, like, to be able to influence somebody, we have to have a basis of safety. They have to trust me. If they don't, I don't even ask them for anything. Like, that's one of the, I'm sure people ask for referrals before a relationship is built, and it's not going to happen. And in fact, it damages a relationship because you went for the sale before you even had a connection, right? And so I think there's a really an example of this. It might be good to share. So I run a gift. One of our businesses is a gifting agency. This is actually not a gift that we sell, but this is just to show you how we apply this idea into helping someone feel radically appreciated, right? So I was sitting down with a real estate agent a while ago, and he sat in on one of my keynotes, and he enjoyed it. He bought some books, and he also owns an office space. So he's like, wanted to have lunch one day. So we get together, and I'm going through my process, right? And at first I'm like, I don't really think we're going to do business together, but this is another human being. I don't know who this is going to be one day. Like, let's just connect. And I go through my process. Hey, tell me about your story. Here's what I'm listening for, right? And I know you guys are attuned to this. I'm listening for energy. I listen for when I share a story, if they get excited about something, or maybe even a little upset about something. I want to hang on to that and go a little deeper. And I noticed this gentleman, when I had brought up his wife, he he loves his wife, right? People love their spouses, right? Sometimes, more than others on different days. But he was really excited about his wife. And so I I asked him, I said, "Hey, how did you and your wife meet?" I love hearing people's stories of how they met. That's how I asked, "What's your story?" I didn't say, "How did you get into real estate?" I said, "Hey, tell me about you and your wife. Like, how did you guys meet?" And he had a really funny story. He was actually in San Antonio, and I'm not going to remember the airline but this is important. And he happened to be on a layover, and there was another, and his then complete stranger, now wife, was also there in a layover. While she was laid over between flights, the airline went out of business. So she was literally stuck at the San Antonio airport, and I believe it was called Mesa Airlines. If I'm wrong, forgive me. And so he's just shared this really hilarious story. And then we met at we sat, we had drinks, we chatted, and we stayed in touch. And then turned out we were both from Dallas, and yada yada. So then they got married, and I thought that was such a fascinating story. And so I went back and I racked my brain about what's a way that I could acknowledge this person for something unique that they shared. So I had this idea, and I went to Vistaprint.com, right? The glamorous Vistaprint.com, and they sell coffee mugs you can buy for super cheap. You can put whatever you want on it. So I like to find ways to personalize things. So I got 2 coffee cups, and I noticed that their colors, he predominantly wore blue, and his wife predominantly wore yellow, or she was also blonde. So I got a blue and a yellow coffee cup, and I found the logo of that airline that went out of business. I put it on the coffee mug, and then I put a little statement on the other side of the mug that said, sometimes a breakdown is just the beginning of a beautiful story. And I mailed this to both of them, and with a handwritten metal thank you card, which I think you guys have gotten from me, just like saying, "Hey, thank you so much, for our conversation. And as we were chatting, I just loved hearing how much you adored your wife, and your story was just so funny. I just had this idea, and I hope you guys remember that, sometimes the breakdown is just the beginning of a beautiful story." Y'all, you would have thought I bought this dude a house. I mean, he still can't stop talking about that story. I went to go speak at an event. He literally, before the event started, got on stage in front of everybody just to explain the gift that I gave him, to say, "Dude, y'all, you need to listen to this guy because he does what he's going to tell you to do. So pay attention." And I can't tell you how much spinoff has come from that random lunch conversation. And I think this is where most people, they don't take risks like that in a relationship. Because I could have done that and it would have been like, "That's super weird. Why would you send this to me?" And he never talks to me again. I suppose that's possible. But I think for me, what I've learned is that I don't want average relationships. I want deep, meaningful connections. And here's what I also know is that most people aren't willing to go first because they're simply afraid of rejection. So I have just decided I am going to be a first mover. If I see an opportunity to deepen and grow a particular relationship, I'm going to pour into it, and I'm going to go first, probably second, maybe even thirds. Beyond thirds, they'll likely do something back, maybe even out of guilt, like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's poured in so much, I've got to do something for him." But I think honestly, usually after the first time, when I make it whether it's a super genuine, very simple, thoughtful thank you card, a really unexpected gift specific to our conversation, or maybe a referral or an introduction specific to something that we said about what they're struggling with, what one of their goals are, any number of those things, that has been my master key to unlock relationships, is paying attention, is going through that process. And here's the thing, it's not just having that conversation, Garrett. It's listening for something specific that you can acknowledge this person for, and then going that next step. A lot of these conversations, you can have a great conversation, and then you can be like, "Well, that was a great person. I enjoyed meeting them." And then you do nothing. You don't engage with them. And then you find out later that you work with a different agent, and then you get upset about it. But again, the problem isn't technology. It's the illusion of relationship. You're not as connected as you think you really are.
Well, and John, and taking that little extra step of the gift the way that you did it, the likelihood of them going, "That was super awkward and weird. Like, John did this thing," and you're like the butt of every joke at dinner, like moving forward, like the likelihood of that is very, very, very low. the more often would be like, oh, hey, thanks, John, and you're just two coffee cups that end up in their mug rack, and okay, those are the mugs we have, and that was cute. But there's the more likely, and we can all think about the times that people have done something nice for us. Almost never are we going, that was awkward, way strange. Like, more often than not, we're like, that was really nice. That whole worry is in our own head. That whole space of like, they're going to think this is really creepy and awkward. That's us holding on to weird stuff. Like, more often than not, they're going to be like, you took time to think about me, do something special, unique to me. Like, that means a lot. And most people get so much stuck in their own head, they never take that next step. And I think we should do it a lot more to make people's worlds around us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and John, we've talked a lot about the things we can deploy externally, and to kind of pull it all as like one complete system here, working on the internal, because I can hear a lot of people saying like, this is awesome, I want to do this, but some days I just don't feel like it. It's really hard for me to wake up and bring that energy that you're paying attention to, because when you're paying attention to someone else's energy, I got to make sure I have the energy here. And I believe there's this fulfillment cycle that happens. The more you do that, you're just going to feel better, the energy is going to rise. But what would you say to the agent that says, I'm ready to put this into play, but I'm not feeling it? What can I do to be grateful on the days that I don't feel like it?
Mm. Well, I think that one of the first pieces to understand. So let's do a little lesson on gratitude. This actually happened a couple days ago, so this is real life, right? So I live on a small 6-acre farm. We have about 23 chickens, and the other day I was taking my boys to their martial arts class, and so I was driving out of the driveway, and I noticed there was only one chicken out. That's a weird sign because they usually are everywhere. And I happened to just text my wife on when I was leaving. I was like, hey, can you just check on the chickens? Because I don't see any of them. And so she goes out there and she says, they're gone. There's one left. I was like, how is that possible? And no, we do live in the country, so we've had chickens, get eaten by coyotes, but never 20. And so the whole day I'm just in this real upset funk of like, man, I'm such a bad pet owner. I let all my chickens get eaten and I'm just beating myself up. Yet, by the way, how often does this sound familiar, right? Something happens in our business and then we beat ourselves up and we look at everything we could have done differently. And that's natural, right? That is our human condition called a negativity bias. We're prone to look for what's wrong before we look for what's right. And and here's the point behind that, which is that pessimism creates the illusion of safety. Pessimism creates the illusion of safety because if I keep looking for what's wrong, I'm going to find it and I'm going to protect myself and keep myself safe. But the other side of that is I'm going to prevent myself from ever having deep, meaningful relationships and authentic joy, because all I'm focused on is everything that's going wrong. And I'll be honest, man, that's how I felt most of the day. And then we got home and I just tell my son, I say, hey, just go check on the coop. Just go see if you can find him. What happened is the chicken door. We have an automatic chicken door that opens and closes with the sunset and the sunrise. It stopped working for some reason. So my son opened the chicken door and all of the chickens jumped out. And I was like, this moment of like joy. I've never been so excited to see a chicken in my life because I thought I lost them all. And so it was this interesting mind game that I played with myself, that I created gratitude from nothing. And so here's where the definition of gratitude comes into play, which is gratitude is the emotion one feels when you receive a gift or experience something as a gift. And that makes a lot of sense. If somebody gives you a gift unexpectedly, it's not even your birthday, they put a cup with your airline that failed logo on it, like that experience, that's joy, that's gratitude, right? The other part here is the experience of something as a gift. This is where we start to have control. It's our ability to look at things and ask the question, where's the good? Where's the gift? Where's the lesson? Because sometimes the gift isn't obvious. I spoke at an event and I shared this idea, which is that in every life experience, there's a gift, but it's your job to find it. Mm. And this young girl stands up and raises her hand. And so I called at her and she says, my dad passed away a few months ago. How do I find the gift in that? Talk about sucking the air out of a room.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give her a quick answer. So I thought about it. And I said, answering the question, or even asking yourself the question, where's the gift in my dad's passing, almost feels disrespectful. Like you wouldn't even want to try to answer it. And so I'm not going to try to tell you that there's a gift in your dad passing. But I'm just going to invite you to be open to the possibilities of what is going to become available for you because of this experience. And as an example, sometimes when people pass away, the family actually gets more connected and united than they've ever been over, unfortunately, a tragedy. And she was a teenager. So I said, you're likely might need to get a job sooner than everyone else that you know. And you're going to have this experience of learning how to be self-reliant and independent earlier on than probably a lot of people. And I'm not saying that you need to be grateful for what happened, but I am telling you that there's an opportunity for you to have built community connections and to learn something. And you don't need to be grateful that your dad passed away, but there's an opportunity to be grateful for his life and who you are because of him. And I think that's the case for all of us, which is you don't have to be grateful. Maybe there's not a gift in the fact that you had a $3 million listing that bailed. But maybe that showed you an awareness that you're really attached to your results. Maybe this is your opportunity to let that go. Maybe that lesson is going to make you $10 million over the next 10 years. Maybe because you lost that client who's super needy, you actually have time to engage with people who want to be in a relationship with you that you actually enjoy. But if we're always going to be focusing on the mistakes that we've made, what somebody said that they shouldn't have said, we just get to feel miserable every single day. But if you allow yourself to ask the question, where's the gift in this experience? Where's the lesson? Where's the opportunity? Then you can literally take anything and make it good.
I love that.
What an incredible way to put a bow on this episode, man. John, thank you, man. Thanks for coming on with us today. I know I don't want to wrap this up too fast. I know you have a timeline, but your perspective on building relationships and growing and finding the gratitude, finding the joy, finding the good in the situations and the people around us is amazing. And we met each other about a year ago, give or take, and grateful to have you in my world, my friend.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And John, thank you for being you. Thank you for joining us, of course, but also thank you for going after and pursuing this business when you're like, I don't know if people want this, but there's something here. And I know this is going to turn, and it is. And it's only going to get bigger. You're only going to speak on more and more stages, bigger stages. So if guys, you do want John to speak at your event, John, how do they find you? How do people get in touch with you if they want you to come in or if they just want to follow your journey?
Yeah, for sure. So oddly enough, I don't go by Mr. Thank You online. I go by just my name, The John Israel. Fun fact, there's another Mr. Thank You who showed up recently who's like a crazy social media influencer who gives away fake money for followers. And so
I need to put you like Mr. Thank You. Protect.
Yeah, if you look up Mr. Thank You, you'll see either some dude on a jet ski throwing money in the air with a half-naked girl on his shoulders, or you're going to see me with chickens in the background and small children. So I hope you'll be able to figure it out. But I go by The John Israel. My website is mrthankyou.com. So mrthankyou.com. You can find me there. And, here's just my last, thoughts that I would say for everybody is that great relationships aren't meant to be, they're made to be, right? If we want to have great relationships, we have to stop putting all the effort onto the other person's shoulders and take responsibility for the success of our relationship. So if you want to learn how to do that with your clients, with your personal relationships, you can follow me online, sign up for my blog. I send out a weekly blog with ideas on how to do this. And you're not alone. I think it can feel challenging when you feel like you're the only person who cares about the relationships working around you. and maybe others don't as much. And my encouragement to you is to also understand that there's components that go into that. Sometimes we just need to be better about communicating our own needs to other people to help them fulfill it, so that we can be served as well in our relationship. So that's my goal in life, is just to help people be happier by having thriving relationships, personally and professionally. So if that's interesting to you, give me a follow. I'd love to stay in touch.
I love it. I love it. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on, spending your time with us. It was great to have you back on to share an hour with us, give or take. And, for anybody who's listening right now and you want to learn more about what Matt and I are up to, and more episodes, more great interviews, because we've had some amazing people on recently, you can go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to it, lifeat10tenths.com. Life at 10 Tenths on YouTube. You can come check us out, Life at 10 Tenths online. And then we have an amazing online coaching group with amazing community. We'd love to see you all there. But with this, John, I just want to, again, say thank you so much. I appreciate you. Appreciate, as I said, your friendship. And we're going to probably have you back on here, hopefully again, if you want to come back and hang out with us, because we have a lot more stuff to talk about. We probably need to schedule more time is what we need to do.
Good conversations are a fun thing. They're one of my love languages. Just great conversations.
I love it. Thank you, sir. Matt, anything else you want to say before we run?
Yeah, just thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.